Hello, greetings. This is second recording because my dog went nuts and ruined the first recording. Um, okay, so here's your image. Um, I want to first talk about a few things. There's color and light feedback. There's kind of a magical effects feedback. Let's call that VFX feedback, and then there's character feedback. So there's three different things I want to go over. So I'm going to start with the character feedback. I isolated your character really quick, just quick and dirty mask, just to kind of think about the character alone. So, what I want you to think about is the logic behind the character itself. Okay, his whole body is made of wood. It's like wooden vines. That's like his entire makeup. He's got some patches of leaves on the shins and the rib cage, but his head is like a smooth green flesh, and then his beard is like dead leaves. That's what I think they are, the dead leaves. So I'm just losing the logic as to how does this guy function? Like, what is he? Is he a man made of tree stuff? In which case, why is his head green, smooth skin? Or is he a green skinned man that's wearing tree stuff? Like, is he wearing the tree? I don't think he is. I think he's made of the tree stuff. Um, if his face is fresh and green, why is his beard dead leaves? The beard is dead leaves, but his face is fresh green. I would almost think if his face is fresh and green, wouldn't everything coming off of his head be fresh and green? Um, yeah. So these are some of the logical questions I'm thinking about. Like how does it work? Um, I think you got a problem overall. If you make his head, if you make his head wooden, then you basically have an entire image that is. Let me just do this real quick. If you make his head wooden, then the entire image is brown. So that probably won't be good. It's probably not good to have just an entire brown character in front of a brown tree. There's a brown tree and a brown character. We need to rethink how we're doing this, really. So it's like Here's okay. So that's the character feedback, right? The character. So I'm not really giving you necessarily a solution. I'm just raising questions for you. Why is his head smooth and green? What is it made of? That's one question. What's his head made of? Why is it smooth and green? If his head is fresh green matter, why is his beard dead? Why is the beard like dead leaves? And then finally, is there a logic to the leaves coming out of his body and the leaves coming out of his shins? Like, is there a logic to why the leaves are there, or are you just putting them there? So, like, the way I would imagine it, um, I would imagine it is like maybe the leaves only come out on his arms and legs because he's like a tree, and a tree only has leaves at the end of their branches. So, if I were to do a quick paint over of that, we would like take the brown color here and erase out all the leaves that are on his chest, and like get rid of this flower. Get rid of this flower. And then we'd only have leaves. Let me just take the green. We'd only have leaves on like the legs, and then like the arms would have leaves coming out. Okay. The arms would have leaves. The hand would have leaves. So maybe it's like that kind of thing. Like there's like shaggy leaves coming off of the hands, like grass, almost. That would make more like logical sense to me because he's like, oh, it's a tree, and all the limbs have green, which means we could also make his head brown and then like all these extra bits could be fresh green, right? Because his head's like a limb, so he's got green coming off of the brown head, and then his beard would be actually green because it's fresh green beard. That still doesn't solve the problem that he's a brown character on a largely brown background. This is where we need to talk about color and light. Everything is very saturated in this image. And the problem with the very saturated image is that it fools your eyes into thinking that it's giving you the details you want. So if I desaturate the whole image, I'm going to put a white layer on, set it to color. You'll notice that zoom out, you've got interesting pockets of light and interesting pockets of dark. I would say we need to push the character forward and push the tree and the background further back. So if I do this in grayscale, I would take let's take like this gray color here, and I'm just going to take a brush and paint in, like this is the very background. This is like all the way in the background. I'm just going to paint in the background. And this is how we could play with value. It'll give you better depth, and it'll pull more focus to the character. Already, this looks better because we killed the detail in the background, and we're just seeing the big shape of the tree, and then we've kind of got the shape of the guy in the front. But let me turn this to screen. Wow, look at that. Turning it to screen immediately throws everything further back and brings the tree into the midground. And then what you can do is add another layer. I'm doing this with overlay layers and screen layers to kind of show you how we are like pulling the values. You can do this with your we'll turn the color back on in a second and we'll see what it really looks like. But it might be good to turn your whole image into grayscale, do what I'm doing, and then reapply the color after the fact. Let's turn this to overlay. So the foreground has got overlay set to black. Okay. So that brings everything in the front closer to us. And then we can probably throw everything back a little bit. And I'm just going to select everything but the foreground. I'm going to throw it with the gray from the background. I'm just going to fill the whole thing, set that to screen, and then I'm going to turn it down a bit. Okay. So you see how, and the character is still blending in with the background a lot, so the final touches I would do would be to maybe do another overlay layer set to black, so it's DB. If you're in Photoshop, D and B means black and brush tool. DBX is white with the brush tool. Okay, so I'm just giving his shape a darker contrast, and then I'm just going to tone it down a bit. Okay, this we can fill up a little higher, and then this here in the back we can duplicate. Okay, so you see how at the small scale this, like, first of all I zoomed out a lot, and I've purposely kept it zoomed out because I'm trying to make it read really well at a small scale. And this is important if you're trying to do Magic the Gathering cards. The art is only like a couple inches big. So everything needs to read really good at a small scale before it looks good at a big scale. So at a small scale, I now see that there's a figure in front of a shape with a background and a foreground. That's what I see at the small scale. If I zoom in, it's obviously really rough because I just like quickly did this, but you can kind of see the difference here. Let me duplicate this. Duplicate, and then we just I gotta duplicate it twice. Duplicate this layer. I'm just setting up a before and after for you. I'm gonna just merge all this down, and then we're gonna merge this down. So this is before. Oh, sorry. This is after. Before. You see how everything's all muddy and like it's kind of like we kind of lost what's happening here. We don't exactly know where the tree starts, where he stops, where the foreground stops, where the foreground starts. But if we break up the values and you paint within those values, then suddenly you're like, oh, actually I can see there's a guy with a tree and a foreground of flowers and like the the background. So that's kind of we're talking about composition and color and light. If I could take this color and I could put the color back, and I'm just going to set it to color layer. Now this obviously this kind of looks like hot garbage because it's a little crazy. Your colors are all very saturated. So like, but if you let me just group this, turn this off. Okay. You see this is the original color without the value adjustments. The color with value adjustments. Even at the super saturated level, it still reads more clearly. It's more clear, right? Oh, and I forgot to. I just realized I didn't paint his shoulder flower thing. Well, that's okay. You get the idea, right? Okay, so about the color now. So some of this color is too vibrant. As you can see now that we've pulled the values back and forth, there's a lot of saturation still happening. And I think what we can do to aid this is to take all the background and we just pulled the background into a slightly more desaturated level of color. So I'm just going to fill that with black, and then I'm going to set that to color, so it's black and white, and I'm going to tone it down to like 30. Okay, so like the background is now it's thrown back into some haze and it's desaturated a bit, and I might even throw some blue. Where's my blue? Here we go. I might even throw some blue on it and then set that to like a maybe we could try color layer. That might be too harsh. Set some blue. Just gonna give us some atmosphere. So it kind of tones down the background a bit, and then we could take this whole tree that he's in front of, and also we could tone down the saturation of the tree a bit. Why the saturation of the tree? Well, because the tree isn't really the focus of the piece. It's him. So, we want the character in the foreground. The story is the guy's doing some kind of magic to grow the flowers. That's the story. He's a magical tree man, and he's got magic going on, and he's helping the flowers grow. So with that story in mind, we can adjust. There we go. And even him, I'm just doing layers of desaturation. There we go. So I've desaturated it quite a bit. And the purpose would be to show the flowers. If the flowers look too dark, you might be like, you know what, those flowers look too dark though. Those aren't exactly the kind of flowers I envisioned. So maybe we duplicate that. Throw the flowers up here. Okay. So we can probably brighten the flowers up a bit with the levels. This is part of like planning the piece out. This is part of planning the piece, right? So you got like this vibrant flowers in the front that are growing. And you got the tree man, and then his magic would need to be very vibrant too, right? Like, so this, we actually kind of need to like throw that back here. The dog's freaking out because some people just came by and the neighbors came back. You could probably design the magic a little differently, something a little more flowy that like brings interest to the shapes that are going on here. Reinforces the shapes. The only thing, the other thing you could do with when you're doing magic and stuff, you could also use the magic to reinforce like him a bit. Maybe the magic spirals around his head and like basically takes your eye to his face. Maybe the magic's coming towards us, so like the big parts of the magic are here. And you see like the flow you get, like suddenly the piece is like it's got all this like energy going here. Everything leads you to the story, which the story is he's like healing the world or something. So that's kind of like my proposal to you. You need to change the character design up a little bit. You gotta do something. The head can't just be green, but he can't be all brown. But if you adjust the values and the saturation, he could be all brown, because then the value and saturation from him to the background is different. So you could kind of save it that way. Here's before, after. Before, after. It just like throws like, maybe the background's too light. The whole point is you need to just have some kind of lightness to the background that just pulls the tension away. You want to throw the background really far in the back. You don't want it to be right, like perfectly sharp. It's not perfectly sharp in your painting. Well, actually, kind of is. If you look at your painting, the level of rendering here is the same here. So you're kind of competing in level of detail. So another thing you could do is like you could use like Photoshop's tools to help you. So firstly, you could filter it and do like a Gaussian blur. So there you go, like those. You can already see it like through the focus out, like almost like a camera is looking at it. Okay, and then you take your levels. take your levels. Brighten it. Take the really darks out, take the really lights out. And then you can desaturate it. And then you can also okay, and then like I say, if you want, you could throw out like a blue haze. It'll help. It'll help with the throwing it in the background. Blue, why blue? Blue because the sky is blue, right? But it can be blue. It could be, if you want the piece to be warmer, it could be an orange haze. Maybe it's like sunset or something. So like that already is doing a lot. We can combine this down. Hey, come on, calm down. We combine this down. The difference. But you would need to like pull apart the guy from the tree because he looks too close to the tree. So you still need to do that too. So there's two alternatives for how you could fix this thing. For character design, you should maybe think about maybe he's made of maybe this green, maybe part of the green is like intertwined through the body. So like he's made of fresh branches and old branches. You know, he's like fresh and old. And maybe that's, you put a little bits of the green throughout the body. So that way it's not just his head's green. Like his head's got, basically you connect his head to his body more by showing like, oh well, parts of him are actually green. Something like that. So if you start throwing more green in, you're saying that the head is like part of the body and not just this head thrown on the green at the end. And you might, I get it, the beard being orange reads well, but you might need to make the beard like green, darker green. Let's try it. You might need to make the beard like a darker green. I'm just gonna paint it in real quick. And we'll set it to color. Okay, so you see how it looks with the green? Maybe you got flowers in the beard. Maybe the beard's got flowers. So you take the purple and you like throw the purple into the beard. That could be cool, right? And that also keeps this theme that he's some kind of plant man that's made of purple flowers and wood and green ivy. So like, have you thought about what flower you're referencing here? What purple flower are you meaning to evoke? Is he made of roses? Is he made of tulips? You know, like what is it? Obviously not tulips, right? Because it's not like a vining plant. But you should think about like what kind of flower is this guy referencing? Like, is it a dandelion? Is it an orchid? You know, and you should draw those flowers. You know, don't just make up stuff. You already made up stuff. Well, he's like a tree man standing in the woods. That's the made up part. But you've got to reinforce the made up stuff with like the real world stuff. So the flowers need to look like some kind of relatable flower that people understand. Maybe it's roses, because roses is like an easy thing for people to get, like a vining rose, and he might have thorns on him and stuff, so it'd be kind of cool if he has like thorns and kind of rose like. Or if you want to do the orchid, because I feel like you were trying to go for like an orchid, you could do that too, but it would influence the design. I say roses too because he kind of has like this wooden appearance, and rose bushes have like a woody branch So you can think of it like, I feel like rose is a better flower to use for him. Probably wouldn't be deep purple though. Probably would be like more of like a peach or something, or not peach, like a maybe like a pinky red. Think of it like that. Then he's got like some that pink I'm doing here. Notice how the pink is so light that it really draws your eye because everything is so dark. Where you painted him pretty dark, but the peach is I keep saying peach, it's pink. The pink is something like that. That kind of looks cool. What's this plant that he's carrying? You know, like maybe the plant's like more yellow. Did you ever see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2? Secret of the Ooze? There's a scene at the beginning where they have a mutated dandelion, and it's like a huge dandelion plant. It looks like the size of a cauliflower or something. It's huge. But anyway, you could have like a dandelion. In which case, the stalk of it would need to be green. If you reference a dandelion, you'd be like, the stalk would be like green. Okay, thank you. The neighbors come home around now, so my dog freaks out. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. You need to make the head make sense with the body. So either make the head wooden or make more green appear on the body, so it's like not just a green head with a wooden body, because then it feels like you just threw something together. You don't want that. You don't want people to view your image and go, oh, they didn't really think this through. It should be clear that you spent a lot of time thinking this through. So any illustration, it should be obvious that you spent a lot of time really thinking about how everything works. There should be some logic to it. So whether that's the composition and having levels of the composition, like we talked about, or let me just merge that down. Levels of the composition, the shape of the magic. Think about the shape of the magic. Let me do it one more time. Let's think about the shape of the magic. Should the magic be green? Should the magic actually be green powers? I think it's bright enough for it to work okay, but I would want it to be like coming towards us with like magic flaring out and echoing the shape. Something like this is more interesting because it echoes the shape of the flowers. It creates this, we call it rhythm, like a rhyming or a rhyme, a visual rhyme. It's all this shape, and then it comes like this shape. So it creates this like interesting back and forth. And you want to make the magic maybe a little more obvious because it's the whole piece is basically about this guy healing the woods. And that's another thing. If he's healing the woods, it might be the case where everything around him is kind of dead. Like, let me just select everything real quick. This is really quick and dirty. Everything's quick and dirty with these paint overs. I don't think there's any point to actually fixing your image for you. Like, I need to show you the path. Okay, so let's just pretend the story is about it's a dead forest and he's healing the forest. Maybe we color. Maybe it's really dead and lifeless, and all of all the tree leaves are like um, all the leaves in the tree are like dead, and the grass is dead. Okay, let me take that to color. So now look at that story. That story is about a dead, lifeless world, and this magical man is healing it with flowers and stuff, or whatever. That's a more interesting story because there's a contrast. It's interesting because there's contrast. Um, when you design stuff like magic and you're doing these particles, you got to think of them in threes. You got to do like little, medium, and then big. Little, medium, big. So like right, like if the story is about a dead world, a dead forest, and he's coming back and healing the forest with his super magic powers, then you get this whole like, oh my god, he's really healing everything. Last point of feedback for you is on lighting. There are some fundamental lighting issues. I don't have time to do the paint over now to show you how to render the shapes, but what I would say is you should take a reference photo of yourself doing exactly what this guy is supposed to be doing with the correct lighting. So it looks like the light's coming from his right. So you should take a photo of yourself standing. Take a photo of yourself standing with light coming from your right. And take a look at how the shadows cast on yourself. Like really look at how the nose looks with the shadows. Look at how the arm looks with the shadows. I think it'll completely change how you're painting this guy. Because it feels like, just judging by the way it's painted now, it feels like you're guessing. And you're not actually knowingly painting. You're not painting thinking, I know exactly how this works with lighting. You're painting going like, this is kind of what I think it does. But it comes off that way. It comes off like you kind of know how the light works, but you don't really know. So you got to reference, because that way you'll really know. And then in the future, you don't have to reference as much because you've referenced now. In the future, you'll just kind of lock in this kind of lighting position and you'll understand it better. So I think that's everything. Let's just I'm just trying to up the contrast on the guy in the background. Okay. Something more like this is interesting. And then if you're like me, one of the things I do at the end is I'll take a gradient map and I'll throw like an interesting gradient map on it. So I'll just throw a one I use often, and I just set that to like soft light or overlay, and I'll just tone it down to like 20%. Helps unify the color. It's subtle, but it unifies the color more. So if I just collapse all this down, this is the paint over. This is the original. This is the paint over. It's the original. The readability is important. That's one of the main things I'm trying to drive home on this feedback. And then the design of the character is also very important. And that's the other thing I'm trying to drive home, is that you need to think about, why is his head green? Think about the logic. Did this guy grow from a seed? Or was he a man turned into this plant thing? Was he originally a real human? That might be a whole different look. If he originally was a human man and did like the vines like burst out of his body and take over his muscles, that would change the entire way he is, designed. Or was he like a creature grown from a seed? He's more plant than man. In which case, maybe the head is an approximation of a man's head. In real life, in reality, it's like the head is made of like bits of leaves that are forming a man's head, but it's not really a man's head. It's like kind of like a cabbage. He's a cabbage head. Look at a cabbage and be like, what if the head formed a cranium, cabbage cranium? That could be interesting. He's more plant than man. It's your call, it's your character, but you need to think about the origins of the character and like how they came to be, and it's something that you do with character design. Was he grown? Was he transformed? Is this a suit? Is this some guy wearing plants? I don't think that's the solution, but I'm just saying it could be that. You could say, no, this is just a suit he wears, in which case I'd be like, well, I think you designed it wrong. But I don't think that's what you want. I think you want him to be like a tree man. So, was he grown or was he changed? That would be the question. But yeah, anyway, think about the flowers you're using. Don't just arbitrarily put a flower on there. Like, go look up a flower you really like and use that as the reference point. Take a reference photo of yourself in the pose with the lighting correct. For the magical hand, what you can do is you take yourself posing for the reference and you set up a flashlight shining into your hand so that you can capture the light as it, like, what does light look like beaming into your hand open like that? Put a flashlight there, or a lantern or something. If you have a lantern, or like a lamp, you could have just a lamp, and put the lamp in front of your hand. Take a photo, or you might need to get someone else to do this. Either someone else take a photo of you, or you take a photo of someone else and you kind of direct them. You'd be like, okay, put your arm out further, put your head down lower. Like, I do that with my wife all the time. I get her to pose for me because I can like just kind of puppeteer her a bit. Anyway, hope that helps. Thanks for the updates. It's looking good. I know this is a pretty heavy feedback session. There's a lot to do, honestly. Take it one at a time. Focus just on the character design first, and then think about the color and lighting stuff later. Because the character design will solve a few problems already, and then the lighting stuff, you'll have to fix that a little bit later. But anyway, great. All right, I'll talk to you later.